A very good evening and welcome to yet another episode of Fourth Estate here on ZTNPRIME, channel 294, where we tackle all things media and journalism in Zimbabwe. I am your host, Tinomuda Chakanyuka, and today we are discussing the role of the Zimbabwe Media Commission, and we'll also look at the impact of citizen journalism, fake news, and misinformation, especially as the country approaches the 2023 harmonized election. And to help us discuss this topic today is Commissioner Miriam Tose Majome from the Zimbabwe Media Commission. Commissioner, welcome to Fourth Estate.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, to start with, may you kindly walk us through the mandate of the Zimbabwe Media Commission, firstly in general, and secondly in relation to the upcoming harmonized elections on the 23rd of August.
Okay, thank you very much. The Zimbabwe Media Commission is one of the 5 Chapter 12 commissions. By that, it simply means it is found in Chapter 12. The Constitution is divided into chapters. So you'll find the independent commissions in Chapter 12. That's all it means. Chapter 12 commissions, amongst them, if I can just say without wasting time, Zimbabwe Election Commission is one of them. The NPRC, National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, the Gender Commission, the Human Rights Commission. Those are 5. They're independent. Their role is to look after the interests of democracy and good governance and transparency. So what these Chapter 5 commissions do is they protect rights that are given under Chapter 4, which deals with the Declaration of Rights. So you'll find, I know I'm going backwards, but just to give context, you'll find perhaps with the Gender Commission, there are rights to do with gender, perhaps upliftment of women.
Gender
yes,
equality,
exactly,
equity, and all those
exactly.
principles.
So you'll find the Gender Commission looking after those rights, promoting those rights, protecting those rights. Same as elections, the Zimbabwe Election Commission. Yes. So now when we get to the media, it's also there to protect media rights, which are granted under Section 61 and Section 62 of the Constitution. Yes, so that's what the Media Commission is all about, because media rights are deemed basic rights. Everyone's got the right to access the media. Everyone has the right to free media. Everyone just has the right to also access to information. If you need perhaps information held by public bodies, even private bodies, we might go into that a bit later, because people think that it's just public bodies or state enterprises that are obliged to give information. But it really binds everybody. If you look at the Freedom of Information Act, so what the Commission does is to protect those rights. If someone's rights are infringed regarding access to information, perhaps it may be someone who wants information to do with maybe protection of a right. Perhaps, let's just say the death sentence. You've got the right to life, but perhaps you've been sentenced, maybe given a death sentence. But certain information that could secure your right to life is held perhaps by some other institution. You've got the right to access it in order to protect and guarantee that right to life. Otherwise, without it, you would definitely lose your right to life.
Right to life.
Exactly. Yeah, things like that. For example, we had the COVID pandemic. It was very important for people, even maybe journalists or whatever, to get certain information about COVID, especially when it started. We just needed to know what kind of disease it was, what it did, and its effects. If perhaps we went to a hospital or whatever, and they wouldn't give us that information that would help protect our health rights, we, the Commission, would come in, or we come in, and we have powers to order release of that information. Those are some of the things we do.
Okay, but
yes.
There are other media bodies like your Voluntary Media Council, the Zimbabwe Union of Journalists, MISA, among others. Mm-hmm. What is your working relationship like with these various bodies?
I would like to say it's extremely cordial, because they are the players in the industry. They are the ones who are there. They are the foot soldiers, I would guess, in the media space. They are the ones who are working as journalists, as media practitioners, as photojournalists, and they form their own associations to protect themselves and to also enhance their professional spaces. So our working relationship with them is very cordial. So what happens is we promote their existence. We are not here to control anybody. We just say form whatever associations you want. It's all in pursuit of freedom of association. So they form their or their associations to usually self-regulate. So they are really self-regulatory. They regulate each other's behavior, each other's conduct, and they also ensure that standards are maintained in the media. We don't just focus on journalists because the media is wide. The media is not just journalists.
I think that's where you may need to shed a bit more light, because a lot of people out there, when they hear media, what immediately comes to mind is your traditional media, your newspapers, television, and radio. What does the word media really encompass?
Media refers to a wide array of information platforms. It can be your print journalism. For example, we're here in this august house, the ZimPapers house, I think it's called ZimPapers building, ZimPapers Herald House. Yes, the Herald House is a newspaper that's print. So you'll find a wide range of media practitioners working in the Herald. You'll find there are the journalists, like you said. There are perhaps people who do the photography. There are the editors. I don't know. You tell me exactly. They're all media practitioners.
We are an integrated media house because we have broadcasting.
Exactly.
We have multimedia. We have print.
Yes. So I was going to get to. Then you have the print side of it, the newspapers, the journals. Just print. Yeah, anything print. Then you have electronic media. That will be more like your broadcast, your TV stations, ZTN. Other TV stations that are now operating in Zimbabwe. And then you have social media, which I know is quite exciting. But social media is a bit of a gray area because it's really difficult to regulate.
I think it's an area that we'll touch on later in the program.
Yes, but it's also part of media. That's definitely, that's media. Then we have another little gray corner of your citizen journalists who are also providing news, who are also working in the media space, citizen journalists. But we don't obviously recognize them as a formal union, but it's just a type of media practitioner.
Okay, we're heading towards the harmonized elections, 23 August. Your role during this period?
Our role remains the same. Our role remains the same in terms of Section 249. We are the regulator of the media industry. We are not controllers. We don't control. That's not our job, because then that would really go against the whole mandate of free media. We regulate the space, meaning that our role is to ensure that everyone, every media player, has free and fair access to media. That's what our role is in various ways. We just promote everyone to have free access to the media. That's our role.
You mentioned that your role, part of your role, involves regulating the media. I want to understand how you strike that balance of ensuring that there's people uphold media ethics, and there's good practice in journalism, balancing of stories, etc. How do you then balance your regulatory role and at the same time ensuring that the concept of a free press is upheld?
By what the Media Commission does is we license mostly publications. That's the first role, to make sure that they are there, that anyone who wants to go into the media space is licensed to do that, as long as they meet the and they're not that that much. They're not stringent. You just have to present yourself and say what you want to do and just give a composition of who's behind it. And we really just give licenses to a lot of people. I don't think we've really denied anyone a license. So we also accredit journalists, media practitioners. Accreditation, I must say, is voluntary. It's voluntary. There is no compulsory accreditation, but media practitioners come to the Media Commission because they know the benefits of accreditation. If you are a serious media practitioner or a journalist and you want to be taken seriously, you know the benefits of being accredited. So that's what we also do. We accredit journalists, and we also handle complaints, media complaints. If certain people are not happy with whatever content or whatever attributes they have encountered in the media space, they come to us. That's what some of the things we do. If rights are infringed, rights perhaps to do with privacy, rights perhaps to do with just access to information,
like you mentioned.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we that's what we do. We are regulators. We say come to us, and we will investigate, and we will try to just provide some sort of redress.
Yes, but yes. In doing so, because I'm seeing yourselves as a referee, especially when you're handling these complaints. My interest really is, as a referee, how do you ensure that you are dispatching your mandate, but at the same time you are not trampling on the principle of a free press? Because some may feel that by regulating the media, you are sort of putting a noose on the horse and showing it where exactly it should go instead of you know.
Yeah, that's a very common misconception, but it's a good misconception because it brings out other issues of what sort of environment people want to be in. Because if you don't regulate spaces, you have anarchy. You have to regulate every single space because it only feels like, I guess, like it's being an infringement, like there's infringement of rights if you are on the other side. But if you are on the other side and your rights have been infringed, that's when you appreciate the fact that there's someone to go to complain or to seek redress, right? But if you are the one doing the infringing, you know, it's like, well, whatever, look, people are trying to gag me. And there is nowhere in the world where the media is not regulated. The media is regulated in every single country. Every single country has different rules and regulations of how to manage and regulate their media spaces. So Zimbabwe is not an exception. But of course, if people don't know that, they think you can just say anything anyway. Even the social media is regulated. In countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, they have laws regulating social media as much as as ordinary media. I don't know if I've answered your question. I think
you have. But
I think I've meandered.
Still on media regulation, you mentioned that there's no country that does not have some sort of regulation. But the difference that we then have is in some countries, they have what they call self-regulation, where media practitioners themselves regulate themselves. Then we have our case here in Zimbabwe where there's what some feel is statutory regulation. Your view, which is the best form of media regulation, statutory or self-regulation?
Okay. That's another misconception, Tinomuda. We have those associations we talked about, the ZNF, the voluntary, yes,
ZUJ.
Those on ZUJ and whatever you, the content creators have their own platform. Those associations are they self-regulate, and we promote that and we like that. For example, the Voluntary Media Council, that's really just a self-regulation platform where media practitioners subscribe to it voluntarily because they want to regulate themselves. The Media Commission has absolutely no problem with that. We actually encourage media practitioners as professionals to have, I guess, the will to self-regulate themselves. So we do have self-regulation in Zimbabwe. We have so many of these associations, and they self-regulate. They've got their own codes of conduct, and which they apply, which they enforce amongst themselves and in their profession. And then we have the state regulator, because all things should really have some sort of, I guess, some central space where you go to, perhaps if you're not happy or if you need certain laws enforced. So that's just what the Media Commission does. It doesn't control the media. We let media practitioners do what they want until perhaps there's a problem. That's when they come to us. And we are allowed in terms of the Constitution to have codes of conduct, to actually write and draft codes of conduct for media practitioners if they don't have their own codes of conduct. But to date, we haven't done that because there's no need to do that, because we'll find that our media practitioners have their own codes of conduct that they actually follow and they enforce.
But would it not be prudent for us as an industry to have sort of a hybrid code of conduct instead of having, each sector having its own code of conduct?
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. It definitely does. That's quite prudent. So it's something that we always think of, working on. But we feel that our laws, we administer the Zimbabwe Media Commission Act, but it's going under amendment because it needs to be amended. Because what happened was that the media fraternity, or what is happening is they want a situation where there is co-regulation. Exactly.
Yes, I was going to ask that question, but maybe you can.
Yes, but then our law, our constitution doesn't give room for that. It just gives room for one regulator. That is the Media Commission. So unless the constitution is changed for the Media Commission to share its regulatory powers, that's perhaps when we can really start to talk about that. But yes, I understand way before my time that Cabinet approved the principles of co-regulation, not necessarily the act or anything, but that they agreed to it. They saw nothing wrong with it. But you have to get around the legal hurdle of the Constitution, because the Constitution envisages I don't think that's correct English, but it envisages one regulator. So we are just following the law, but allowing them to self-regulate. And so far, it's working very, very well. We don't see a problem with the current status quo.
Okay, you mentioned that one of your functions as a media commission is to accredit journalists. Maybe for the benefit of some of our viewers who may not understand how this process of accrediting journalists really is about, can you take us through? It may sound simple for us that are in the know, but for some, they may need to understand how this process is.
Yeah. Anyone who practices as a journalist and usually attached to a media house, for example here, they have proof that they actually do work as a journalist or as a media practitioner. They simply come to the commission. They, of course, just fill out a few forms, and they are accredited because they have proved that they are journalists, and usually they have a letter from their employer. Usually there's a cover letter, and they say, oh, the following are journalists, please can you give them accreditation cards? So they get a little card. Freelance journalists are also accredited, right? Because we do not constrict anybody. So if you are practicing as a journalist, you just come to the Media Commission and it's just a simple evaluation process, and you get your card. Your ZMC card.
On that note, we take a short breather, and after this break we will talk about the impact of citizen journalism, fake news, misinformation, especially as Zimbabwe is heading towards the 2023 harmonized elections. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Following the story.
What is happening on Zimbabwe's roads? How did we get here? Through red robots. Basically break every road rule under the sun.
izvo so inini ndakadhakwa nembanje dzangu ndikaenda kuchipatara ndaunorapwa ka handibatsiri asi ndikazvishaya teteka aiwa.
Deeper analysis.
So, are you ready and prepared if violence rears up?
Jacob Mafume's party has taken hostage of them.
The videos are there.
Do not be drawn into the debate of discussing issues that are sub judice. He said when he grows up, he would like to be like me.
Oh. Just to put you in there.
Good evening and welcome to the program.
Just to break the ice, what is ZNEF's mandate?
To promote media freedom.
And money matters.
Coming up, Tanganda Limited is set to bring online a macadamia processing plant.
Now, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed company Seedco Limited has resolved to suspend indefinitely its proposal.
Every week on ZTN Prime.
Welcome back to the second and last segment of this episode of Fourth Estate, live from our studios here in Harare. I'm your host, Tinomuda Chaganyuka, and in the segment we focus on the impact of citizen journalism, fake news, misinformation, particularly during this period when the country is heading towards harmonized elections. And we have in the studio Commissioner Miriam Tose-Majome from the Zimbabwe Media Commission. Welcome back, Miriam. Now, the election season is upon us, and first thing first, the safety of journalists is important during this period. As a commission, what are you doing to ensure that journalists are safe as they cover elections?
Yes, thank you very much, Tinomuda. Unfortunately, I just left my little manual just over there. I would have shown you. The commission produced a manual for journalists to cover election reporting, because the safety of journalists is really something that we are seized with, because we are very much aware of the hazards that politics comes with, especially in our country, where sometimes you do get violence, unfortunately. So what we have done is we've held a number of trainings for journalists just to keep them safe. Our manual, the little one I referred to, has a section particularly on the safety of journalists, where it's just telling them practical things, for example, to just stay away, protect themselves, protect their equipment. I think it's very, very few journalists in Zimbabwe who have been trained in like war zones, where you see sometimes those journalists running with cameras. We don't really have that. So we tell them to be practical. That's the first thing. Don't go into the line of fire. Sometimes it's just common sense.
But at times that's where the picture will be.
That's where the picture will be, but then there's no story that's worth getting killed over. There really isn't. There really isn't. You'll die, and then we'll just watch you five seconds on TV, and that's the end of you. So we want our journalists alive. We have more use for living journalists than dead ones, because the dead ones, we've already forgotten their names, unfortunately, So we tell them to do that. We launched a press jacket a few weeks ago as part of our election preparation. It's a very beautiful blue jacket. I'm sure you've seen it.
I have one.
Yes, yes, exactly. So that just serves that purpose of, because I think when you wear that jacket, you gain a lot of respect.
You're easily identifiable.
Yes, you're easily identifiable. But you see, there have also been questions where people say, but that actually marks you out. Because there are politicians who don't like journalists. But look, that's just a minority.
You raise an important point, that there are certain sections of our society, including politicians, who do not like journalists, and often met physical violence on journalists.
Yeah.
Have you engaged political parties to sensitize them on the need to have cordial relations with journalists?
Yes, we do. We had an election reporting workshop in Mutare last week. It was a big one because it combined all the major stakeholders, the police, the media fraternity at large, and we invited political parties. So there were 2 political parties who came, and showing that we are apolitical. We reach out and we talk to all the political parties. So the funny thing is the parties who came were actually opposition parties. So we really liked that. We really appreciated that because they had the most number of grievances against certain players in the media. But then we thought we did our best to bring them together to at least start conversations where they are not seeing each other as enemies. So those are some of the things we are doing to just try and open up dialogue spaces between our formerly divergent parties in terms of just not political parties, but perhaps divisions.
And quickly, did you get any positive feedback from last week's meeting?
We got a lot of positive feedback. The proof of that is that the majority, if not all of the people present, agreed to sign a pledge. Just a pledge on, I guess I would just call it a truce, because our media is highly polarized. So we thought that that was really good, where people from different sides of the river can actually sit down and agree on the basic principles of journalism, and we hope that we'll take it from there, because we are so tired of a polarized media environment.
Commissioner, it's unfortunate we are running out of time. We have actually run out of time before we really delved into the impact of citizen journalism, fake news, and misinformation. And I would like to invite you for a second episode or edition of this particular discussion. With your indulgence,
yes, sure.
Would you be able to?
I'm a public servant, so I have to.
Great. So definitely we will continue with this discussion in our next episode, where we'll look at fake news, the impact of citizen journalism, misinformation, especially as the country is heading for elections. That is a wrap for us this evening. You were watching Fourth Estate, and I was joined in the studio by Commissioner Mari Tose Majome from the Zimbabwe Media Commission. Do make a date with us, same time, same place, next week here on Zimpepers Television Network. I am Tinomde Chakanyuka. Goodbye and good night. Pleasant viewing.